Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at RSAR's main membership meeting. I'm Judy Covington, and I'm honored to be your 2020 president. This month, we have a great speaker. Before I give you information on the speaker, I'd like to invite CEO Dave Tanner to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So would you please stand?
Okay, if everybody that's able to, please stand. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Judy.
Well, thank you, Dave. So we're honored to have Dr. Ami Bera, who's our congressman for District 7 in our Sacramento area. Congressman Ami Bera has been a member of the U.S. House of Representatives since 2013 and is the longest serving Indian American in Congress. He is a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where he serves as chairman of the Subcommittee on Asia, the Pacific, and Nonproliferation. He is also vice chair of the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. As a medical doctor and former public health official, Congressman Bera works tirelessly to improve the availability, quality, and affordability of healthcare in the U.S. In addition, Congressman Bera is a strong supporter of American leadership and global health. He is a member of the CSIS Commission on Strengthening America's Health Security, which made a series of recommendations to prevent pandemics back in 2019. And he has held 2 congressional hearings on the coronavirus outbreak. In addition, he's held several town halls in our area, and I want to thank you for that, Congressman Bera. So,
do you want me to go ahead and?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, thanks for that generous introduction, Judy. You know, it is the irony is, you know, one of my focus areas in my 4 terms in Congress really has been global health security and pandemic preparedness, particularly, you know, in 2014 when we saw the Ebola outbreak, and you know, we learned a lot from that outbreak, put a lot of things in place to help prevent the next pandemic, and things actually worked fairly well when, you know, in 2016, 2017, we were worried about a Zika outbreak, and you know, we actually got ahead of that and, you know, didn't realize things. But over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, you know, some of those efforts were unraveled a bit, and I think, you know, people got complacent, and it was always hard to get people to focus on pandemics and global health security. Now everyone is, and you know, again, we will get through this virus, but it will take all of us working together. And you know, maybe I'll take a moment to just talk about, you know, put my public health hat on and just talk about where we are here in the region with regards to the virus, but then also nationally, and then, you know, even internationally, because I think it does matter. We don't get our economy going again until we actually get ahead of the virus and have the public health infrastructure to help navigate things, after which, you know, I do think we can revive the economy relatively quickly, but you know, there are going to be some challenges and headwinds as well as, you know, we look at economic revival. Pandemic wise, you know, the fact that we were slow to ramp up testing, you know, I don't think anyone realized how reliant our supply chains were on a single source, in this case, China. And when a pandemic hit every country at the same time, and particularly China, where, you know, they were moving inventory to deal with their own population, it left us in a real dicey situation in terms of personal protective equipment, our ability to get the reagents and the raw materials to do testing, to ramp things up fairly quickly. And then on the medication front, much of the raw materials for our pharmaceuticals medications also come out of China. And that's been a real wake-up moment. You know, many of us talk about, you know, for national security purposes, as well as to help us get through this pandemic fairly quickly, we have to build up our own internal capacity to manufacture these reagents to manufacture the personal. That's good for the economy. It creates jobs, but it also, protects us. All of it's not going to come back, but we do have to build that capacity. And you'll hear us talk about the Defense Production Act and our real desire. I'm a Democrat most of the time. I don't want President Trump to take over things, but in this particular case, I'd like President Trump to use his executive authorities to go to those companies that have the ability and say, we've got to ramp up testing, as President of the United States, much as FDR did in World War II. And this is the United States of America. We could do that. I think it's embarrassing that we don't have the testing that we need, that we are so reliant on another country in the middle of this pandemic. So we are getting better at it. We're certainly doing a lot more testing, but part of the reason why we can't open our schools, when I've talked to our superintendents, is we just don't have the ability to test enough folks and get those test results back within 24 or 48 hours. It doesn't do us any good if we are testing a lot of people right now, but if the results don't come back for 7 days, or in some cases 14 days, it actually is a worthless test because none of that information is actionable. In addition, you'll hear us talk about contact tracing, and that's going to be incredibly important if we try to open up our schools as well, so that if someone does test positive, we very quickly have to identify what students or what individuals were around that person. And it's not just limited to the schools, but we still don't have the contact tracing abilities. I know the county is working on hiring up folks to do that. And I really, again, think, until we get those two things in place, it's going to be very difficult to open up the schools. And I think the hesitancy with the superintendents is if they open up, when they get those, inevitably you're going to have children testing positive, they'll have to shut down again. And it really makes it very difficult if you're opening, closing. Having made the decision that they're going to start online and virtual learning actually is probably the right decision, because now all the efforts are saying, okay, let's get our teachers prepared. Let's make sure they're comfortable with the equipment and everything else. Let's make sure the kids have that connectivity. And, and then if we do build the testing and contact tracing capabilities, we can actually then make that transition from virtual. But now the decision's been made, you can put all your energies into making sure kids get that education that they need. So that's where we are with the virus. The tools that we have to really bend the curve and bring it back down are the ones that you hear everyone talking about. Wear a face covering when you're out in public. That really has been shown in studies to be very effective. One, if I'm asymptomatic but have the virus, it's going to be very efficient in making sure I don't spread the virus to others. But we also know now that we have a little bit more science, it actually is protective of me as well. If someone else has the virus, it will protect me from getting the virus. So that's incredibly important. We should do what our mom always taught us to do, practice good hygiene, wash your hands frequently. Soap and water is better than hand sanitizer, but hand sanitizer works well. And that's important. And then the physical distancing component, staying 6 feet apart, certainly is important as well in minimizing the spread of the virus. In addition, just simple things that we can do, it's better to be outside than inside. So if you're gonna have a gathering with another couple or something, better to sit outdoors and, again, physical distance, avoid large indoor gatherings. Those are all really important. The reason why I'm reiterating all of that is because I don't think we can say it enough. I want our economy to open up again. I certainly understand the importance of folks getting back to work, folks getting those paychecks, et cetera. But we can't do it as long as the virus counts are really high. And again, if we were to all do this in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I really do think we would be at a better place, a place that'll look like we were back in May. But that, there's an urgency to do all of that now. Let's go to the federal level and what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. And are we close to getting another COVID-19 relief package? there's a super urgency of getting that done right now with so many people unemployed and relying on those benefits. You know, the first CARES package, we came together in a bipartisan way to and do enhanced unemployment benefits, and folks got an additional $600 a week. Every economist told us that was the right thing to do. If we had better computer systems, you could certainly adjust it and make it, you know, variable based on a person's prior salary. I understand the concern legitimately that, you know, some people with the enhanced benefits may actually be getting more benefits than they were making via their salaries. That was an emergency situation. We had to get something out. We've proposed continuing the $600 enhanced unemployment benefits. Senator McConnell's proposed $200. It's going to end up somewhere in between there, you know, and there may be some variable where it's tied to the person's prior salary, et cetera. But all of us agree that, you know, in this current situation, you know, that's absolutely necessary. With regards to your industry, you know, there are eviction moratoriums that expired at the federal level last week. I don't see a scenario where you don't actually extend those eviction moratoriums, but many of us understand you also have to have rental housing assistance in there as well, because if all it is an eviction moratorium, you're going to have a lot of landlords and, you know, small mom and pop landlords that are going to struggle to pay their mortgage because they need the rent coming in. And we don't want to compound the challenge that we currently face with massive unemployment to now have a housing and eviction and homelessness challenge. So, you know, I can't see a scenario where those two don't move together, rental housing assistance with an eviction moratorium. Because again, I think you'd find yourself in a disastrous situation if that didn't happen. And then, you know, the president, you know, there was the $1,200 stimulus that went out to many Americans. The president appears to want to do that once again and push that out. And most economists continue to think to keep our economy from going into a deeper recession or even a depression, we've still got to, you know, push money out there to allow people to put food on their tables, et cetera. The worrying things that I'm seeing right now in our community is, you know, as you look at the food banks and talk to some of the food banks, there are people showing up at those food banks who have never required assistance, who are having real food insecurity. And I think, you know, the basics, food, shelter, clothing are extremely important right now. And that's where a lot of our focus, you know, ought to be to help keep folks in our community from going into homelessness, from, you know, going into deep food insecurity. And, you know, if we can get through this acute phase, I do think we will have a vaccine by early 2021. I think you'll actually start to see promising results this fall. I do think the caution will be that, you know, we have one shot at this, so we don't want to put a vaccine out there until we've fully studied it and know that it is going to be effective. It probably won't be the best vaccine that we have, but it probably will have some pretty good efficacy, and the science is moving pretty quickly on that. And once we have that, you know, I think, you know, you'll see people starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. So I'll stop with that, Judy, and I'm happy to take questions.
I'm sorry, I always forget to unmute myself.
Oh.
Aaron and Carter will be managing the questions. Aaron, do we have any in our
So we just got one. How can we get hairdressers and nail people back in the assisted living places? Or I would even say, you know, how are we getting them back to work was one of the questions.
Yeah, so I think it's probably difficult to get those individuals into assisted living or nursing homes unless they were tested before they went in there and you know they're testing negative. Assisted living and nursing homes are particularly vulnerable populations. And when we look at the deaths that we've had both here in the Sacramento region, but also nationally, a disproportionate number were in nursing home populations and the assisted living and those vulnerable populations. So if we're, let's say, going to get a hairdresser into a vulnerable population like that, you certainly have to test that person before they go in and know that they're testing negative and they don't have the virus. Obviously, it is interesting because you've had, hairdressers that have opened that are wearing masks, the customers are wearing masks, and the hairdressers tested positive. And they may have, worked with 150 or so clients, all of them who have tested negative. And again, that's the evidence that wearing that face covering really does seem to be pretty effective. Most of the hairdressers have been, very, very cautious and cleaning after every customer, using the proper equipment. And thus far, I'm actually not aware that there have been any major clusters that have been coming out of hair salons or even nail salons. I do know the governor's moved to have them work outside a little bit where they can. The major clusters that we're seeing right now largely are coming from young people who have let their guard down, gotten together, not worn face masks, gotten together in large crowds, or folks that have had gatherings at their homes where they haven't been cautious as well, wearing face coverings. And those are the biggest clusters that are fueling the current cases that we're seeing here in the region. So.
All right. What do you think economic recovery will look like after we have this virus under control? I know that's a loaded question, but.
I think it's going to be choppy initially, because I do think, and this one's probably more a question for anyone in here that does commercial real estate, because I do worry that there's going to be an impact on the commercial real estate market, in the sense that a lot of people are telecommuting from home right now, and I think a lot of employers have realized that, hey, this actually works. I haven't seen a drop off in productivity. And, so I think some of that telecommute, that'll probably continue. I think telehealth and telemedicine, has proven to be pretty effective, and the doctors and the patients seem to be somewhat satisfied with that. So that's going to change things. But I actually think I think this fall and potentially the winter could be tough for us, and there'll be stops and starts. I'm not a proponent that says let's shut everything down again. I am a proponent of saying everyone needs to wear face coverings, everyone needs to physically distance, everyone needs to avoid large indoor gatherings, but I don't want to see us go into a deeper recession. And I do think this is where the federal government has to help also prop up some of the state and local governments as well and help get them through the next 6 months. I think if we can get through the next 6 months, you could start to see a faster recovery. But I do think there are segments of the population. I think the restaurant industry will be slower to return. I think retail is going to be a lot harder. I think you'll see sectors like tech and others come back pretty quickly.
All right, thank you. I got another one. So are there any statistics you are aware of as to the numbers of homeowners actively using forbearance programs provided by the CARES Act?
I don't know that, but I can ask my staff to pull that number, and maybe we can send it over to Judy and she can distribute it. So
that would be fantastic.
I know I have staff on the call listening, and so they're taking notes. I'm sure some of those numbers exist. So.
Right. All right. What do you forecast for the housing market in 2021 with regard to home values?
What has been amazing to me, and again, you'll know this better than, when I just look at the Sacramento market and what homes are selling for, I'm going to guess that's just a product of supply and demand, that there just, isn't much housing stock on the market right now, and incredibly low interest rates. I anticipate that interest rates will continue to stay very low. I can't imagine the Federal Reserve, doing anything with interest rates in the middle of a recession. and that may continue to bolster the real estate market. I actually think, and I think it was in the Bee yesterday or over the weekend, if more people are telecommuting, and the Bay Area tech companies, much like Google has said, everyone's going to work from home for until the middle of 2021. I do think we ought to be strategic as a region to try to get some of those folks to come live up here, where it's easier to find a house. The lifestyle, certainly is conducive. Even for folks that want to live in more of an urban setting, we now have a pretty cool downtown, midtown. And I do think as a region, we should be very strategic about trying to lure some of those folks who can live out here but telecommute to Silicon Valley. And that could be a silver lining for our region if we're smart and strategic about it. I think, so we have a lot of renters in the Sacramento area as well, and I think that's the variable. If you just do an eviction moratorium without the rental housing assistance, I think you're going to have a disaster. And I think you could see some of what we saw in 2008, 2009, because I don't sense the lenders are going to be that forgiving, the mortgage holders. We've strongly said that those two probably have to move hand in hand.
Right. All right. How have any counties in our area or just in general been able to get off the watch list for the virus? I mean, all of us did well in May and so forth, and then we started to see things go in the opposite direction in June. And the Sacramento region and Sacramento County did the best of the top 50 counties and 50 regions in the country in terms of case rates. And we're actually doing better than Southern California, et cetera. And I do think we're getting ahead of this. I'm not aware that I certainly know Sacramento County is not off the watch list. YOLO's not off the watch list. I don't know about some of the other surrounding counties. Certainly San Joaquin County is a hot spot right now, and it's going in the wrong direction. And the Central Valley, is a challenge area right now. I think Dr. Bielensen's done a really good job for Sacramento County, trying to balance things out. And again, I sense in the next week or two we will start to see those case numbers starting to come down. But hopefully the cautionary note is let's continue to be vigilant as we go forward, and I think we can stay ahead of this. Right. So change of topic, but I do think it's relevant given some recent conversation about the post office. What can we do to make sure that the post office survives?
We have funding in the HEROES Act. I think it was $25 billion to help shore up the Postal Service. The post office is extremely important, particularly right now, and particularly in rural communities where many of those individuals rely on the Postal Service to get their medications and the like. In many communities, that may be the only contact folks have. So I'm a big believer in that we've got to shore up the Postal Service. President doesn't really like the post office. I think that's one of the things that'll get negotiated. I don't know that it'll be $25 billion to help shore up and strengthen the Postal Service and get them through the current conditions. But I don't see I don't think we'll let the Postal Service go away. I think it's pretty important.
Right. So there's a lot being done to protect renters and homeowners, but what's being done to protect small investors who can't afford the moratorium?
So this is where, one, we would hope that the mortgage holders would work with the landlords to work something out. But it's also where, if there is an eviction moratorium, we've got to provide rental housing assistance. So those individuals, while they may not be able to make rent, they can access rental housing assistance in order to make their rent. That's also where the enhanced unemployment benefits are also important, because those we know are being used to pay rent. And again, the president wants to do the the $1,200 stimulus. I would much rather, make sure that money gets to the folks that are out of work right now, as opposed to every, American or many folks who still have their job and are still getting their paycheck receive that $1,200 as well. I'd rather see it more targeted, but I think that's where you're helping people pay their rent. If we start to see that, the number of folks that are not paying their rent, they're not getting evicted, and they're not accessing, or they're unable to get rental housing assistance, and you start to see those. And again, you're really talking about a lot of Americans who may have a rental house, or, and these are just moms and pops, and that could be part of their retirement plan. That could be the income that they rely on. If they're not able to make their mortgage payments, I think that's where Congress would then have to step in and, again, really, we bailed the banks out. I would hope the banks would do the right thing, or many of these mortgage holding companies. I don't anticipate they will do it without some pressure from the federal government, if we actually see that. And the hope here is we don't want to see what we saw in 2008 and 2009, where a lot of folks were losing their homes. I just think that takes us into depression, because a lot of America's wealth is tied into their homes as well.
Right. So another change of topic, but I also think that this is very relevant. If an employee contracts COVID-19 at work, do you see this shifting company liability to workman's comp? If so, how will workman's comp handle this potential issue?
Yeah, so on the liability issue, I suspect in whatever COVID-19 relief package finally gets negotiated, that's where Senator McConnell wants to see liability protections for companies that, inevitably employees are going to get exposed. And it's very hard to say you got it from being at work versus, you were out having dinner with your friends. I do think we have to, we'll end up with some of that liability protection. I think in the middle of this pandemic, for COVID-related expenses, we've been also talking about how, we ought to cover some of those costs as well. So, because what we don't want is folks to be afraid to go to the doctor, folks to be afraid to go get tested. Because if that's the environment that we live in, we're never going to get ahead of this pandemic. I mean, this is a unique situation, and we actually want folks that are having fevers, coughs, respiratory symptoms to actually seek help and not be afraid to, because of what that would cost.
Right. So we got a couple others. What is your take on the number of Californians leaving the state, or I guess kind of that discussion?
So that's been a trend that's been happening for a while, partly because of the regulatory and tax environment in California. And part of it is, what we talked about earlier, the ease of telecommuting as well. So I think we have to be careful, because when we talk about, getting those Silicon Valley, Bay Area tech folks to live in Sacramento, Reno's not that far away. And, the tax environment in Nevada, is, going to lure a lot of folks. I think you've been seeing a lot of folks, again, part of it is just the cost of living in California is extremely high. So we don't have enough affordable housing stock. And when I talk about affordable housing, housing stock for a couple that's making $100,000 a year, this is a tough place. Even Sacramento has become pretty tough for folks to find that housing. So I'm a big believer in, that at least when it comes to housing stock, that we need to change and look at the regulatory environment. We need to look at zoning restrictions and so forth, because otherwise we will never actually, part of the homeless challenge is that you don't have enough affordable housing stock. And part of the reason why you don't have enough affordable housing stock, when you talk to the developers, they just can't pencil out, how it's profitable to build any of those affordable units without massive subsidies from the government. So they'll continue to build, higher end housing because they can pencil that out. But most developers right now are having trouble penciling out building more housing stock. And I think that's someplace where, you know, if you can't find a place to live, that you can find a better place for half the price in Reno or Idaho or Montana, and you can still telecommute. You know, that's a challenge that we're going to have.
Right. What's the delay in implementing the HEROES Act, and could you kind of talk about? I know there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So we in the House of Representatives, we passed the HEROES Act about 11 weeks ago in the middle of May. And sent that out. And it's a pretty robust package. And again, none of us ever expected that, you know, that was what the Senate was going to take up. What is disappointing to me is that the Senate really didn't start taking it up with any urgency until about a week and a half ago. And I think what Senator McConnell found was that his Republican majority in the Senate is not on the same page here. They're, you know, just like the Democrats, they have a far right that don't want to do anything. They have more pragmatic members that are probably closer to where we are. And the same thing, we've got a far left that wants to put everything in there. Whereas, you know, I'm probably in that camp that says, you know, let's stay focused on the pandemic. Let's stay focused on the economic harm and damage that the pandemic's doing, as opposed to, you know, all the other things that you know, certainly are important, but, you know, are not necessarily germane to the pandemic and school and getting kids back to school. I actually think we will end up in the middle, where you're going to lose the far right Republicans and you're going to lose the far left Democrats. That's probably the way this has to play out. I think the president, given that there's 92 days to election day, wants to get something out fairly quickly. So I think there's pressure and a sense to do that. And I think Senator McConnell also understands the importance of that. I certainly do. And, you know, again, if we can get to 80% agreement, you know, we ought to get there, and we ought to get there quickly. Otherwise, you know, again, this isn't something anyone was totally prepared for. These are unusual circumstances. The federal government does have to step in and help shore up a lot of these families and unemployed workers, as well as the state and local governments, you know. So I hear the conversations are going better. You know, the conversations between the White House and you know, Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And I think once, you know, I just think about the 4 other packages that we all came to agreement on that passed with large bipartisan support. It started when the White House and Speaker Pelosi came to an agreement, then they took that to McConnell. Things changed, and, you know, from what I understand, they are closer to an agreement. So I don't know if we'll get one by the end of this week, but, you know, my hope would be that there's an agreement in principle, and then the details get worked out, and then we're voting on something early next week.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your efforts on that. I know it's difficult. Has there been any discussion about how the federal government backfills all of this pandemic stimulus spending?
There's been a lot of worry about, you know, the amount of debt that we're incurring right now, but, you know, again, talking to the leading economists and others, that legitimately, you know, it is going to be a big challenge. It was a challenge before the pandemic, but they've all said right now the focus has to be, you know, trying to keep us from going into a deeper recession or going into a depression. Because if we go into depression, it could be a decade that we're stuck there. And, you know, we were able to come out of the 2008, 2009 recession. I wouldn't say we came out of it quickly, but I think we came out of it in a better place, in a stronger place. And, you know, I think if we're smart and strategic about this, we could do the you know, something similar. There won't be, I would say there won't be bailouts though. Like if the banks start to falter, and, you know, I think there is a level of anger with how some of the financial institutions conducted themselves post 2009, 2010, when we pumped massive billions of dollars to bail them out. and how they didn't necessarily make necessary reforms and come out of that. So, you know, this is different than 2008, 2009. And this one's focused less on the institutions and more on the individuals, the people that, you know, are being directly impacted by this pandemic.
Right. Could you maybe discuss a little bit about the homeless situation, maybe in our region? We kind of have a loaded question, but just about, you know, there's been a lot of discussion over the last few years about solving that problem, and money's gone to it, but we're not seeing a lot of change. And I know the pandemic has definitely proved to be another obstacle.
Yeah, so it's obviously it's gotten worse with the pandemic, and you know, you certainly see it. And I think it's going to take an all of us working together approach. So, you know, I'd start with part of it is what we talked about earlier. We don't have enough housing stock, and we don't have enough affordable housing stock. So that's part of the challenge. You have folks that, you know, are very housing insecure, even if they have a roof over their head. You know, the pandemic makes that much worse. Certainly, I would rethink, you know, what shelters are like, how you build shelters, but you don't just house folks. How do you provide wraparound services to really get to whatever the root cause was? Is it, you know, I do think untreated mental health is certainly part of that, you know, untreated substance abuse, yeah, et cetera. So, you know, what do those wraparound services look like? Where do you place those services? So again, there's not one easy answer. And then, you know, I also think about criminal justice reform a little bit, because, you know, you do talk to a lot of folks who, you know, maybe when they were in their 20s, you know, they committed a crime, they went to prison. Now they're 30 years old, they're coming out, they've got that felony on their record. They can't get a job. They're, you know, it's hard for them to find a place to go. And how do we think about that as well? So, you know, there's not an easy answer here, and it's not just throwing a lot of money at it. You know, some of it does go to, you know, looking at the regulatory environment and how you are able to build more housing stock, and the zoning requirement. And those are all within the state legislature and our local government's ability to solve some of those that would reduce the cost of building.
Right. All right. Thank you. I guess just kind of a couple, I know we're trying to kind of get to the rest of our meeting, but stimulus checks, I know there's been some discussion that they get sent to deceased people. Are people returning that? Are we seeing that? And how does that kind of happen?
Yeah, so that's, so you heard me talk a little bit about the stimulus checks on the front end. I understand the intent initially was to push money out as quick as possible. It did go to, you know, there were deceased individuals, because I have friends whose moms have passed away who, you know, received checks. The IRS rules are that you have to return those checks, and if you don't, that they will get clawed back with penalties. And I know our office has worked with a number of individuals. I, again, would much rather see targeted stimulus going to those folks that, you know, again, you know, the rationale of someone who still has their full paycheck and is still working, we're going to send them another $1,200, doesn't necessarily make sense, because they're not the ones being impacted by the pandemic. It was done quickly. I would hope that if we do another round of stimulus checks, that it's done, you know, in a more targeted fashion. So,
Right.
I know you guys have the rest of your meeting to go. Do you want me to make some closing comments, or?
That would be great.
Okay. Look, the next 3 to 6 months are going to be challenging for all of us, but I also know if we stick together and we work together, we can actually get through this. And my hope is, you know, some of the things that we talked about this morning, let's actually take this as an opportunity to address some of those issues. And, you know, the politics aren't necessarily going to be easy, because, you know, this is California, and, you know, they're sometimes difficult, but particularly in your industry, this is an opportunity to think of how we build more housing stock, how we look at the rules and regulatory environment and the zoning issues, et cetera. Because if we don't do those, and those are fully within our control, I don't think we ever get ahead of the homeless challenge. And you know, the other one that was touched, I do think we continue to lose workers and companies that, you know, realize it's too expensive to live in California and to work in California. And you could see, again, it's in the telecommuting world and the connected world, they can just go another 100 miles to Reno or to Lake Tahoe or to Carson City or even further. And I do think we've lost, you know, a lot of workers as well. So I'm an optimist. I think we will get through this. I think, you know, certainly we will come out of this more resilient and stronger. And again, hopefully, as we did in 2009, 2010, we'll come out of it in a better place. And I think Sacramento did well coming out of the last recession. And I think if we're smart, strategic, our region can actually come out of this recession stronger and better. So, Judy, I want to say thank you for having me on again. So.
Well, we also want to thank you, Congressman Bera, for joining us today, and thank you for your consistent support of Realtor issues, and thank you also for being on top of this pandemic. And so just know that we are all giving you a virtual hand clap.
Great, thank you. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're now on to announcements. I need you to remember that today is the last day to vote for SAR officers and directors. Voting closes at 4:30 p.m. today, 4:30 sharp. If you haven't received your electronic ballot, please contact Lindsay at lharank@sacrealtor.org. And now we have an invitation from the Internship Committee.
Hi, my name is Ray Fuentes. I'm the Vice Chair of the Sacramento Association of Realtors Internship Committee. The internship program is designed to help students find the best experiences in being a realtor. It gives them the chance to explore their interests, find out what inspires them, and build a professional network. Now, you probably remember when you first started, on-the-ground experience far outweighed anything you could find in a classroom or in a book. As a mentor, you'll provide hands-on experience in our fast-paced, ever-changing, and competitive market. And as a mentor, you'll show interns how to prepare market analysis, how to go through contracts, review disclosures, inspections, appraisals, things you're probably already doing. You'll share your past experiences, both good and bad, and help interns put those experiences to work. You won't be the only one helping your intern. We have real estate courses that include how to negotiate sales, ethical guidelines, basic contract requirements, and much more. As a mentor, you'll serve as an advocate, provide support throughout the program, and likely beyond. The biggest benefit of being a mentor is giving your intern someone to go to with whom they can talk shop. Being a mentor can benefit both of you, the intern and the mentor. Interns bring fresh ideas, valuable questions, and support to the relationship. And after they obtain their license, they could come work for your company or on your team. If you don't have a team, this could be a great first step in getting started with one. To find out more about the internship program and about being a mentor, contact the Sacramento Association of Realtors. My name's Ray Fuentes. I'm the Vice Chair of the Internship Program. Thanks for your time.
Ray, for that. And also I want to thank the chairman of that committee as well, Courtney. So on to more announcements. The number one question asked is membership and the retail center open? Membership in the retail center is open from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. Call to make an appointment and you'll avoid waiting in line. Temperatures will be taken at the door. Mask and hand sanitation is required upon entering. The retail center is also limited to one person on the floor at a time. Realtors are coming in to look for PPEs. The top selling PPE products are masks and Clorox wipes. Newest item just in is breathable and washable fashion face mask. Visit the retail center and say the magic word PPE19 and receive a 19% discount. COVID-19 special on your PPE purchase. Our online presence has gone into overdrive to accommodate our realtors' needs. We are helping realtors all across the nation. Order online, realtypluscenter.com, and use coupon code 2025 for 25% off your total order, or coupon code 20FREE for free shipping. Cantry is having a second drive-through meal pickup fundraiser benefiting the Salvation Army on Thursday, August the 13th, so put that on your calendars. Pickup will take place here at SAR between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. Meal options are ribs or chicken served with mac and cheese, collard greens with ham hock, and a honey corn muffin. And it's all just for $20. So visit cantrydrive-through.eventbrite.com for your order. The Scholarship Fundraising Committee invites you to their first ever Haunted Hustle virtual fun run. Registration is $35 a person, and you'll get a commemorative race t-shirt and 2 weeks to complete your run on your own time. You can form a team within your offices with more than 20 people on their team will get a commemorative small leaf on the learning tree. Visit sacaor.redpodium.com/haunted hustle for more information to sign up. I'm sure there'll be a link on our website. Real Estate Finance and Affiliate Forum will be this Thursday, August 6th from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And the guest speaker is Jason Frazier of Mortgage X Podcast. And don't forget, SAR hosts virtual regional meetings on Tuesdays at 9 a.m., of course, except for the first Tuesday of the month. To join the meetings, you can find the links on our website at sacrealtor.org. I want to, before I forget, to thank Carter for facilitating the questions for Representative Bera. So thank you, Carter, for that. Now let's welcome back Erin Teague with a government affairs update.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be with you again because I have some really good news to share if you haven't heard already. Last Friday, as you know, there was a ballot measure that the city was intended to vote on to put on the ballot for November. That would be the local rent control that would go much further above and beyond the ordinance that was passed in the city and above and beyond the current state regulations. So the city sued to provide declaratory relief, and they also denied Michelle's Parasit's countersuit. So what that means is that the city does not have to vote to put that measure on the ballot. And so that will not be on the November ballot this upcoming election. So after that great news, I feel like that should be the end of my report, but it is. So that's really good news, and it gives us more time and effort to focus on some of the other pieces that are moving forward. Local eviction moratoriums has been something that we've seen throughout the COVID period, and is something that is going to continue to be a conversation. So Judicial Council, I've heard, will decide as early as August 14th if they will continue their rental eviction protections, which currently right now you cannot file to evict a tenant with the courts. So Newsom has extended local government's power to ban evictions until September 30th. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, the federal eviction moratorium expired on July 24th. So what all that means is that Carter and I are keeping an eye on everything in the next few weeks, because there's several layers that goes into all of those pieces. So just we'll be keeping everyone updated on the COVID site, where if you want to see what's currently enacted, those links are on the website. There's been several members that have reached out to us, and we've tried to get back to everyone as quickly as possible with their questions and help them work through that process. But that just be mindful of the fact that some of those things are going to be in flux, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it, and of course advocating our position on how important and how this affects those of us that are dependent on rents from tenants and who have not seen rents in a few months. So and how all those pieces work together. And as we heard today, how does that impact the long-term economic recovery as we come out of this, and even just move forward and try to keep everything moving. So please keep an eye out for those updates. Another piece, Prop 19 is on the ballot, which is the tax portability measure that CAR is putting together. Their microsite is currently up, and it's starting to gain a lot of positive support. So with so many ballot measures on the November that have qualified for the November ballot, it's just going to be really important that we communicate with our networks how important this change can be, not only for our state, but your clients and everyone involved in the process. So a lot of information is going to be coming out on that. So just please keep an eye out, and we will be communicating the different points and how you can be part of that process. Even if you go to the website, if you're interested in volunteering, I know that there's a sign up on the website. So that's an important piece. There's been a lot of talk recently about Measure A, which is a transportation tax measure that they were going to they had voted and worked through the process to try to put on the November ballot that would increase the tax measure from a regional point. Recently, STA voted not to move the tax measure forward for the November ballot based on the COVID. They didn't think that the time was right to be implementing more taxes on the residents. So as a result of that, we're keeping an eye this week. Citrus Heights and Rancho Cordova are voting on their own local transportation measures. So there will potentially be those on the ballot in those jurisdictions. I think from my conversations, those would probably be the only two. I haven't seen anything of Elk Grove, and this would be the week they would have to decide. So it looks like those would be the only two that would be in that grouping. Another hot conversation in the last couple weeks is the Strong Mayor proposal, which is the Mayor Accountability and Community Equity Act that will be heard tonight at Council to see if they will be putting that on the ballot. The most updated additions that I saw that they last week, the mayor brought forward his proposal to receive council comments and public comment, and they took it back and made some tweaks. The major ones that came out of that is the mayor would only be allowed to serve 2 full terms. There would be a sunset provision on the Strong Mayor for 2030. And if the mayor decides to let the city manager go, then there's a 2/3 the council can override that decision. So those are the 2 major changes from the original proposal. The state legislature, boy, I'm really tripping on my words today, is back, and it seems like it's more political than ever. There's a load of bills that they're trying to weed out, and trying to just figure out what to move forward, how quickly to move forward. Really, typically, August 31st is the deadline for the end of session. At one point, we love deadlines that provide us finality, but in the legislature, we always have to hold our breath for that because there's this wonderful thing, special session. So I had heard at one point that could be an option, but quite frankly, in the last week, I haven't heard anything that is something that will really be moving forward. So we're keeping an eye on that, and CAR has been providing updates and keeping us in the loop with several pieces that are moving forward. So I haven't heard anything if a red alert will come out, but I think I've stressed this before, and I will continue to stress it, that because of the way that we're all operating under COVID, the normal policy process that takes place and the input and the back and forth that decision and policymakers get with the public is very different, and there's quite frankly a less of it, and it's harder to connect with people. And so if there are those red alerts or if something does start to happen in the next 2 weeks because we need to really push something, I just encourage everyone to act really quickly, because those more than ever are going to be really important for decision makers to really understand the impacts that those decisions will have on the real estate market and in their local districts. So yesterday we had a wonderful opportunity. CAR put together a town hall update with Assemblymember Cooper and a local elected with the City of Sacramento, Councilman Eric Guerra, and our wonderful Kelly Swain really put them to the task with questions and didn't shy away from the hard ones. She did a fantastic job, and it was just great to get an update and to really know and understand that they hear us and understand and took feedback about how important housing is and how important, you know, a variety of that is in keeping those pieces moving forward as we are trying to handle COVID and the impacts of it and what it means for our region. So that was a really great opportunity to chat with them. And then, you know, we had Congressman today. So I think this week SAR is quite successful in hitting all of the levels of government and showing that we are really engaged during this time and that we want to be part of the solution, which is a really great piece. Another part that you're always going to hear me, I think I've talked about the importance of voter registration before the March primary, but we are less than 100 days away from the November election. And so I just want to encourage everyone at this point in time to start to take a look at the propositions, but more importantly, really to help engage those around us to register to vote, and how important, and sharing that message of how important everyone's vote matters, even more so than it has in the past. I know in a presidential election, we see larger turnouts, more voices, lots of noise about different issues, but I can't stress enough that, you know, those down ballot measures and candidates that affect us at the local level are really imperative, especially during this time of COVID. And I will use the example of, you know, when the lockdown first happened and we were trying to connect with local electeds to really talk to them about why it's important that we're on the list of essential workers, and just being able to connect with them and work with them to make sure that during this time we are able to keep working, we are able to show them what we are able to keep working in a safe manner and set a really good industry example. Those relationships are really important, and also having those conversations about how important we are to the economy, and having elected officials at the local level to really understand that is imperative. And so there'll be more to come about that. I'm going to keep talking about it, but step one is always that voter registration piece. I heard on the radio this morning, you know, the census is happening and there's the potential that it is going to be on a shortened time frame. So I'm going to communicate that. Those are my local PSAs that I'm going to offer you today for your civic engagement. But encouraging those around you to engage in those pieces, even if it's just your family member. You know, the presidential election is going to have millions of voters, but a local city council elected official could, you know, win or lose by a spread of less than 100 votes if it comes down to it. And so I always would like to be able to say that realtors help provide that cushion or help provide those votes that put you over the edge. So if you have any questions on any of those pieces, Carter and I are available, and email right now is usually the fastest way to reach us, and we're here to be helpful. And I think that's the end of my report, Madam President. Thank you for letting me join you today. And you're still on mute.
I guess by the time Zoom is over, I'll learn how to unmute myself. Thank you, Erin. And I also want to thank our staff for all of the hard work that they do for us behind the scenes. I know they get paid for it, but I'm telling you, these guys are working 5-10 times what they normally do in this pandemic. So I want to publicly thank you for that again. And at this point, we're at 10:01 on my computer clock. I want to thank you for attending the meeting. Our next main meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September the 1st. We'll keep you updated on Facebook and of course on our website, so keep them both on your radar. And thank you everybody for being here. Have a good afternoon and have a good rest of the month.